Barry the bee just graduated from college and is disillusioned at his lone career choice making honey. On a special trip outside of the hive, Barry's life is saved by Vanessa, a florist in New York City, as their relationship blossoms. He discovers humans actually eat honey and decides to sue them. Today, we will recap the story of the 2007 film Bee Movie. The movie opens with a Barry B. Benson, a young incontinent bee living in his natural hive. It's a big day for him as he is finally graduating. After dressing up, he says goodbye to his parents and meets up with his best friend, Adam Fleming. On their way to the ceremony, they reminisce about their time in school, 3 days in preschool, 3 days in high school, and 3 days in college. That's what it takes to graduate in the hive, but time seems to pass much slower for a bee. After a short ceremony, the newly graduated bees are taken on a tour of Onyx Industries, the place where they will spend the rest of their lives. The industry consists of different parts, and each bee is responsible for a specific task in making honey. They also work on their defense against humans while collecting nectar. All the fresh graduates are excited to pick their preferred job post, except for Barry. He's not ready to choose a single thing to do for his entire life. He tries to explain this to Adam, but no other bees are brave enough to think differently. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of the pollen jocks, the bee army responsible for collecting nectar. Barry is fascinated by them as they get to see the whole world outside the hive. One of the pollen jocks notices Barry's interest and promises to take him for a ride soon. Later that night, Barry can't stop thinking about his future career. He shares his curiosity with his father, but like many parents, his father wants him to follow in his footsteps and become a honey stealer. Barry tries to express his own point of view, but it seems pointless to try and change the traditional pattern. The next morning, they go back to Onyx and line up in front of the job placement board. There are limited job openings for newly graduated bees, with only one position available for each. Despite this, Adam was able to obtain his desired job when another working bee recently passed away. However, Barry is not satisfied with the system and does not want to work as an average bee until he dies. He decides to break away from the line and secretly watch the pollen jocks. When they recognize him, they invite him to join them, but he must be careful to follow the ultimate bee law of not talking to humans. As they fly out of the hive, Barry is amazed by the sight of the sky and experiences his first flight through the kites under a bridge, riding to the flower fields. While the pollen jocks collect nectar and perform pollination, Barry watches with amusement. They then fly higher to find more flowers, but a group of daisies turns out to be tennis balls. Barry is not aware of the danger and accidentally gets stuck on one of the balls, and a young girl picks it up and starts playing. Barry's life is in danger, and he screams for mercy until the girl's boyfriend makes a mistake, and Barry is kicked out of the playground. He lands in a car engine and cannot find his way out. When the driver turns on the air conditioner, Barry is sucked out into the car's sitting area, causing the passengers to panic and try to hit him with insecticide. The frightened bee runs out of the window for his life, but then it starts raining. Bees cannot fly under the rain, so Barry looks around for shelter and enters an apartment through an open window. The apartment belongs to the tennis players he encountered earlier, but the window is now closed. Barry mistakes the ceiling lamp for the sun and falls into the nacho chips, causing the guests to panic and try to hit him again. Fortunately, the girl who had played with the tennis ball saves Barry, valuing the life of every creature. Vanessa takes Barry outside through the window, but he cannot leave just yet. He feels obligated to thank her for saving his life, so he returns to the house and heads to the kitchen. With some courage, he starts talking to Vanessa, the girl who had just saved him. Although their meeting is unusual, Vanessa is kind enough to offer him a cup of tea, and they sit down near the balcony to get to know each other. Vanessa Bloom is also struggling with her career and wants to become a florist, but her parents disapprove. They bond over their shared goals and interests, but the night is setting in and Barry must return to the hive. However, he cannot stop thinking about Vanessa. Upon returning home, Barry tells his friend Adam about his adventures in the outside world, including meeting Vanessa. Adam warns him not to pursue an interaction with a human, as their parents will not approve. Barry cannot shake the idea of being with Vanessa, but his parents want him to choose a career and start working like a typical bee. However, it is too late. He has now interacted with a human and dreams of pursuing the interaction. The next day, Barry risks his life again to see Vanessa. She takes him to a flower shop where she wants to work, and they go to a grocery store. However, Barry's worst nightmare is waiting for him there. The shelves are full of honey bottles, sold under various brand names. He cannot believe that their food is being sold in stores. Barry becomes angry and decides to investigate the source of the honey. He sneaks into a honey company and fights a man to get more information. The man shares information with Barry about a honey field that he can reach by following the company's truck. On his way there, he follows a cyclist back and jumps into the truck's window. Once inside, he meets several other insects and shares his problems with a mosquito. When he reaches the farm, he discovers a troubling reality. Bees are living in fake hives, and humans are stealing their honey. Barry takes some pictures and brings them back to his hive, ready to sue the humans despite the difficult circumstances. The story spreads quickly, and Vanessa joins Barry in filing a case against the humans. The court trial starts a few days later, with Barry representing all bees and Leighton D. Montgomery representing the bee companies. Leighton claims to have the right to use nature for the benefit of humans and argues that Barry is not real but a hologram or robot. Barry calls several witnesses to support his case, including a company owner who makes bees work for free while paying other employees, musician Sting, who uses bee terminology without permission, and actor Ray Liotta, whose face is used on honey bottles without his consent. Barry's statements are strong, and he has a great first day in court. Later, Vanessa decides to celebrate with a dinner, but their plans are interrupted by Ken's sudden appearance. Vanessa leaves to heat food for Ken, leaving the two alone at the table. Ken and Barry had a conversation, but it was clear that they did not like each other. Barry made fun of Ken's skills, which made Ken angry, and he dropped a spoon. When Ken bent down to pick it up, he hit his head and became even angrier. Barry excused himself to go to the restroom, but Ken followed him. There, Ken rolled up a magazine with the intention of killing Barry. He sprayed him with bug spray and even tried to burn him with a lighter, but Barry managed to trip and fell into the toilet. Ken pressed the flush button, but Barry grabbed a nail file and used it to surf around the toilet. Meanwhile, Vanessa arrived and she and Ken started arguing, eventually deciding to break up. The next morning was the second day of the trial. The lawyer, Lane, had read all the books on bees and was well prepared. He called Barry to the stand and questioned his relationship with Vanessa. Then, he revealed that all bees are born from the queen and do not have individual parents, so Barry was technically adopted. Adam, a fellow bee, couldn't stand to see his community humiliated, so he stung Leighton. The lawyer, being sly, overreacts and accuses others of being insensitive. Adam, who was stung and feeling weak, is taken to the hospital and is cared for by a honey bear. While trying to come up with a new plan, they spot a group of humans smoking outside. This reminds Barry of the smokers used on bees, so he goes outside to gather evidence. The next day, he asks Adam to stall in court while he is gone. Leighton tries to use this opportunity to manipulate the judge into making a decision in their favor. Fortunately, Barry returns just in time with a smoker and presents it as evidence in the courtroom. While Leighton tries to claim that it is harmless, he accidentally activates it, causing the bees to suffer and revealing his true intentions. The media and jury side with the bees, resulting in a victory for justice. After the trial, Leighton warns the bees about the food chain, but Arya ignores the warning and begins his mission. He shuts down all the honey farms and frays the bees. He also removes honey-containing beauty products from shelves, rendering honey unusable as a sweetener for humans. All of the honey is collected in a massive tank and supplied to the hives. The bees end up with so much honey that they no longer need to produce any more, causing honey production to shut down for the first time in history. All of the bees stop working and return to their hive to rest. The pollen jocks are also called back as there is no need for pollination anymore. However, this causes the flowers to start disappearing. Vanessa's floral business shuts down due to the lack of flowers. Meanwhile, Barry is unaware of the consequences of his actions. Adam realizes the mistake, and the bees have nothing left to do as they have more honey than they need. They always dreamed of being a part of honey production, but now it's shut down. Barry goes to talk to Vanessa and she takes him to the balcony where all the plants are drying. This is not just happening in their area, but in all the fields and forests as well. Not only are the flowers affected, but the fruits cannot grow without pollination. It is Barry and Vanessa's fault for not thinking through their decisions carefully. Before the flowers disappear completely, Vanessa wants to see the flower parade tournament held abroad. As she rides away in a taxi, Barry comes up with a brilliant idea to correct his mistake. The flower parade will have many blooming flowers, which is a good source of pollen. Barry wants to steal a bunch of flowers and bring them back to his city so the bees can spread the pollen to restore the plants as planned. Barry and Vanessa sneak into the parade and choose a suitable flower float to drive away. Afterwards, they get on a plane to return as soon as possible so the flowers can stay fresh. Unfortunately, due to unfavorable weather conditions, the plane slows down. Barry tries to talk to the pilots about it, but they panic when they see a bee in the cabin. In the chaos, the emergency button is pressed and the airbags are released. The two pilots lose consciousness and nobody is able to control the plane. Vanessa manages to connect to the control room and they ask if there is anyone with flying experience. Barry steps forward, believing that a plane is just like a giant metal bee. However, the flight becomes difficult as they approach a thunderstorm. The news spreads across both human and bee news channels, and everyone eagerly anticipates the landing. Unfortunately, the control room does not trust bees and believes that they do not deserve to fly due to their unproportional bodies. This statement angers Barry, who delivers a passionate speech about how bees are a vital part of society. Although each bee's job may seem small, their collective efforts make a huge difference. His speech motivates all of the bees, who rush to help. With the plane's autopilot system not working, the pond jocks arrive to hold it up. Barry guns Vanessa in landing the plane safely. The other bees gather at the airport to make a flower sign at the landing spot, and the media covers this historic moment of a plane flying like an insect. However, this is not the end. The flowers that Barry brought are the last hope for fixing the ecosystem. It's time for the bees to do their job. Barry dons a pollen jock uniform and begins collecting pollen. They then head to the city and sprinkle pollen on every plant they see. Flying around the fields, everything starts to bloom again, leading to honey production. Days pass, and Barry joins Vanessa in the flower and honey business. He also works as a legal advisor for animals in need, and most importantly, he does what a bee does. And that's a wrap on our recap of the beloved animated film, Bee Movie. From its iconic, "You like jazz" catchphrase to its heartwarming message about the importance of bees in our ecosystem, Bee Movie has captured the hearts of audiences for years. But speaking of fast-paced insects, have you seen the movie Turbo? This high-speed adventure follows the journey of a snail with big dreams of racing in the Indy 500. It's a fun and thrilling ride that's sure to leave you cheering for the underdog. So click this video and I'll see you there.